Hello there, good evening, welcome back to Celtic World Order podcast. As always, I'm Steve O'Matt, and it's a pleasure once again to welcome you back here at the channel for a wee an impromptu video. Wasn't really planning on popping up this evening, but of course, in the crazy world of Celtic in recent times, we are going through some, how shall we say it, disappointing times. And of course, it wouldn't have been another day passing this week without another wee bit of fuel getting thrown onto the fire, so to speak, and that has came round in it. Of course, you've seen it, you've heard it, you've seen it all day. It's Daizen Maeda's comments, and I was sort of sitting there, kids on bed, good ladies in bed, and I'm thinking to myself, aye, that's just another disaster. And I thought, what better way than to come on here, a wee bit of therapy, and talk it out again, you lovely, lovely people. It's just another blow, isn't it? It just feels as if we're a boxer that's taking a couple of heavy shots to the head. He's in the corner, he's trying to cover up, but he can't defend himself. And you just want it to get called a day. At this moment in time, that's how it feels. It's the only way I can put it. So we'll have a wee quick chat around about that, and really, again, carry on from where myself and Terry were last night to sort of say, well, what exactly does this mean moving forward? You know, we sat last night, we tried to be a wee bit sort of optimistic, a wee bit positive at the tail end of everything. But then, as I say, you just get another blindsided hammer blow thrown at you and just whisper it. But it's starting to feel a wee bit sort of 10 in a row COVID, doesn't it? I certainly hope not. But anyway, we'll get into it and we'll talk about it. There's a couple of these coming in. If you've got any thoughts on the Daizen thing, bring it up. What's your thoughts on the squad in general? What's your thoughts on, now that we're looking at it, that we've got anywhere between sort of 3 to maybe as much as 5 players who are potentially unsettled? Their heads are elsewhere. They don't necessarily want to be in the door. Let us know. We'll get some of those up. But before we do, just want to say, as we always do, welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much to every single person that's been following this channel, that's been subscribing, sharing, doing all that good stuff to help us get the word out there. The numbers and the growth has been phenomenal lately. We're just over 2,360 or so at the moment. So the next big goal is undoubtedly 3,000 subscribers, and hopefully we'll get there sooner rather than later. And you can do that. You can do your part, and it'll cost you absolutely nothing to do it. Hit the subscribe button. All our content is free. It'll continue to be free. That's the way we want to do it. And if you want to help out the channel, you can. Member sections, just a wee donation, helps with the overheads, the running platform costs, the equipment, so on and so forth. Not the stickers, not that kind of stuff that we tend to give away. Get us elsewhere. Exit CW Pod 1888, Spotify, TikTok, Blue Sky. You know it all by now. Get yourself involved. So anyway, I just want to say welcome to a couple of in there. One of our members there, Sanfran. Good evening to yourself. Alan's on there, and he says, what the Daizen is going on? Exactly, Alan. He's on the YouTube giving us that there. And thanks to Zod there. It's good to see Terry on there as well, and Terry will be back more often throughout the course of this season. It was a wee return to form for him, and always a pleasure to have Terry on. But yes, let's dive straight in to the thick of it. As I say, if you have any thoughts on this, if you have any sort of theories around about how this might play out, then let us know. We will get them up. There's a couple of things that we'll address, but as I say, we'll use the diving off point, which is of course going to be the situation with Daizen Maeda. Now, you've probably watched a couple of podcasts, a couple of things throughout the course of the day, so I'm not going to sort of flog a dead horse and go over it, but I will bring up the key points just in case, just to remind ourselves exactly what's been hitting here. Now, Maeda joined up with the Japanese squad, and of course he had an interview, as I do. I think he was a wee bit late in maybe getting over there, and he was asked a couple of questions about that, and basically alluded to saying that it was due to club-related matters. They've then sort of pressed and poked, and they've asked a couple of questions, and he has dropped the proverbial pipe bomb. He's dropped an absolute bombshell, which I want to know, what's your thoughts on this? What's your thoughts on Maeda coming out and being so blunt about this? Is this helpful to the cause at Celtic? Is this a player being completely for themselves, their own, but if you want to call it an agenda, but looking after Brand Daizen, if you will, or is it something that was completely and utterly avoidable? Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? Let me know and we'll get those up. But he was asked, and he says, I'd received an offer and was telling Celtic that I wanted to take the next step. They weren't able to make good reinforcements, so at the end of the day, they told me I couldn't leave. There were also some things that I'd agreed personally this is with the club, I believe our club, and whatever club's been involved. So I wanted to take on that challenge. I've been talking to the club since before the end of last season. Now, that's a wee interesting point there, because we all remember there was questions around about it, and we got the standard player thing where it was, I'm just focusing on Celtic at this moment in time. I'm just focusing on finishing out this season and being successful. We'll revisit that at a later date. Clearly, there's no interest in that there if that's now what we're being told. So anyway, he'd agreed something at the end of the season, and I'd always told them that I wanted to take the next step. But we had important games, so it was difficult. So what's your thoughts on that there for Daizen? As I says, that I was in conversations with another club, and that's it. And Addy, there's no need to read quotes I've already heard. Well, tough chat. It's happening. That's what we're talking about. There will be people, believe it or not, that haven't, and I haven't read it to you to give my points on it. And in case, I mean, I know I like to think I'm pretty good at this, but there's no way I'm remembering all that, mate. So I need to read off the key points as well, so that I can pass comment on it. So sorry if you've already heard it, but that's it, isn't it? That's the way it is. Everybody's talking about it, and I'm talking about it. But yeah, as I say, the thing there is looking at it, that he was talking to somebody else. I don't know how I feel about that. We always kind of surmised, we always kind of guessed that that was probably going to be the last Daizen. There we go. Thanks, Brown. There we go. See, there you go. Not everybody's heard it. There you go. That's exactly that. But yes, we always kind of thought that after that season there, 2 seasons left on it, he'd done the wee contract extension. That was all about protecting your assets for a view of selling on, wasn't it? He'd had a blistering season. He stepped up to the mark, and he'd basically hit his maximum. Now, Daizen Maeda's been a good servant to Celtic since he's been at the club. Let's not kid ourselves on, right? But that version of Daizen Maeda was only a new thing, really. So there was the argument of, was that a purple patch? Was he ever going to get better? Now, after it, myself and Cody, we sat here and we says, he's the best striker at the club. He needs to play through the middle, so on and so forth. But there's been no body of proof other than that condensed part of last season to say that he was going to kick on and be that guy. Now, I know he plays through the middle for Japan, but again, is he like that through the middle for Japan? Well no, he isn't. But yeah, was he going to kick on? And I always thought that he'd hit his maximum with Celtic. This was the point. If you're going to sell him, you have to do it, because he's not going to sign a new contract, even though we'd hoped we did. We played that whole, he's happy, look at his family, looks settled, all that kind of stuff. We all bought into that. Myself and Cody, Paddy, all the guys in the podcast, we all totally hook, line and sinker bought into that thing. Now, I'm not saying that his family weren't or aren't happy in Glasgow, but that only takes you so far. Every player's ambitious, and ultimately we learn that most players are mercenaries. Do you know what I mean? That's it. They're mercenaries, and as they've got to protect a footballer's career is a small period of time. Some have great longevity, but you're only one injury away, one brutal tackle or something, and it could all be over. So you need to maximise your career earnings whilst you can, and that's it. So I always think that with 2 years left on the clock, with the performances that he had put in, Champions League, goal scoring, all the awards, it was peak time to sell him. Now, as we said as well, and we mentioned it last night, a couple of people independently throughout the course of the pre-season contacted us and says, we have heard via whatever sources, we're not kidding to be on the know here, that he had agreed deals, that he was talking, and he would have left after the Champions League. Now, we didn't name those people, and we'll still not name those people, but they are fairly prominent. You'll be able to work them out and get them. They are on the socials, they're on things like this, and they've mentioned it. And yesterday we sat there and we went, well, he didn't get sold. And we put that to bed, and we thought, well, maybe they were just trying to be relevant, sensationalists, want their name put out there. But no, they've come out, and yeah, they were absolutely bang on. Now, it says here that they were talking to a club. The general consensus is that it was always going to be Brentford. That was always going to be the chess pieces were going to be getting moved, and Blemo was going to move on. Wisa, he's now went to Newcastle, and it was going to be Daizen Maeda that were filling it. It hasn't been confirmed. Maeda himself hasn't named the club in question, but another one has come out as well, Anthony Joseph, always late to the party, saying that there was a Bundesliga club as well that were interested. So there's potentially 2 clubs that have been linked with Daizen Maeda. What one was he talking to? Was he talking to both? I guess we might never know that. But one thing's for sure, things were getting put in, wheels were getting put into motion. And as I say, when you look back and you listen to what he was saying about, I only want to focus in on the club. Thank you very much, Mitch, with the donation to the channel. Thank you very much. Really, really greatly appreciated that. Too kind, actually. I believe there was some yesterday from you as well. Absolutely crazy. You don't need to go and donate your money to us, but we do greatly appreciate that. So thank you very much. And as Joe's saying, exactly. What a legend. There you go. He's saying, right, I'm going to get a pint out of that, or I'll get a couple of stickers, or I'll get a new microphone or something sent over so that I don't sound like I'm farting every 2 seconds. But as we say, anything that we get coming in, we try to tool up the guys with some equipment and stuff. So, Joe, there is a microphone in the gaff here waiting for you, and that'll come to you, mate. So we need to arrange getting that around to you. And that's thanks to these lovely people that watch this channel. But yeah, coming back to it, the Daizen Maeda comments, it then brings it back. What does that mean for this squad? What does this mean for Daizen Maeda? What version of Daizen Maeda are we going to get moving forward? Now, I don't want to say I told you so, because that's not the way we do things here, but it could apply to anybody in these comments or anybody in social media. How many times when we look to Daizen Maeda's performances slightly sliding off, the amount of 1v1 chances, big games that he had, the ones against Rangers, the ones against Aberdeen, the ones against Kairat Almaty, and well, there's another one for San Fran. One of our members in a big donation. Listen, thank you very much. I'm genuinely humbled, but and I'm not just saying that as lip service. That, you know, people do enough just by watching us and doing the wee donation has been a membership. That's too kind. Thank you very much. But yeah, I'm getting distracted by these things, but it's a good thing. But yeah, yes. Coming back to it, what version are we going to get at Daizen Maeda? I'm going to say body language. Body language. You could see it. The eyes in your head don't lie, do they? And people say, oh, here come the body language experts. Here come the body language. Everybody's a body language expert. He's no interest in that. It's there. It's actually there. It's not a fallacy. It's not made up. It's not sensationalist. It's not like bullshit. He looked different. Those 1v1s that he was through, particularly the one against Aberdeen in the final, on the form that he's on, that's a guy whose concentration's gone. That's a guy who really is thinking, this is probably my last game here, and he's got eyes on everything other than the prize. The 1v1s that we've had, the misses that we've had through the course so far of this season, the 2 against Kairat, for example, the penalty against Kairat, even just watching him standing there, it was hit with a guy. It was as if it was a ball that was struck by a guy that could not give a fuck as to what happened, what the outcome of that was. It was one of these ones. If I score, then they're probably going to score anyway, and we're out. If I miss, we're out anyway. That's the way it felt at the time. And you come on and you say those things, and people turn around and say stuff like, where you go, don't boil your head, you're talking garbage and all that. But no, absolutely not. I genuinely believe it. I mean, what is your thoughts there about? I love Easy saying, "There you go, Ian Atchell will save us." Oh, I bloody hope so. I hope so. There you go. But you're going to hang your hat on it. But you know, coming back to the Maeda thing, what version are we going to get out of Daizen Maeda? Now, Terry and I sat last night and we says the window's shut. There's nothing any of these players can do. Maeda can't do anything about it. If another one that was getting linked before injury, Trusty, nothing he can do about it. Hatate was always considered to be the guy that might be going. There's nothing he can do about it. So on and so forth. But what do you think is going to happen? Are these guys going to accept, this is where I am, this is what I've got, and see if I want to get that move, see if I want to still get that same interest? Because remember, some of these teams will probably have pivoted and went and got new guys and filled gaps. Now, there's probably always going to be a level or a position for a guy like Maeda in most teams, but maybe not as the guy that they would want to be number one striker, particularly if the option that they then turn to goes on and plays well. he's coming in to supplement that. So how much they're willing to pay, it might be less. I think it's twofold. It makes it harder for the player. It makes it harder for the club. Some people would say that by coming out with those comments, he's drew a line in the sand and says, I was expecting to go, and that means I want to go. So the next time I'm working towards that January window, I get that. But I also think that it weakens the club's position significantly. And that's what it comes back to what I said about all players essentially are kind of mercenaries. They're looking out for number one. They're looking out for brand Daizen Maeda. They're looking out for brand Edward or whoever it is over the years. They're looking in their own interests. And that will be to the detriment of Celtic. They now are at a stage where they have to, and this is the funny bit, isn't it? They need to really properly plan. They need to start looking ahead. Imagine that concept. Imagine looking ahead. But as well as it meaning you're probably going to lose Maeda for a fraction of the price. Now, realistically, what could we have got for him there in that summer? The stories that we were getting fed was up to and around the 25 million mark, potentially adding on like 27. That seemed a bit lofty, but with these add-ons and all that, don't take anything as not been possible. But I would probably imagine that by the time that comes around, where he's then got 18 months or so on his contract, it's chipped away a wee bit, you could probably knock off anywhere about 4 or 5 million on his price. And I think you're starting to look at Kyogo-ish money. You're in that sort of 10 to 15 million mark for him, which is still relatively good money considering how much we paid from the service we've had out of him. But it's not maximising what we could have got out of him. It then obviously gives us less in, and it means that teams might be a wee bit apprehensive to pay the going rate because they know the guy's gone. And ultimately, if you don't sell him then, you've already got him. You've maybe had to win him round. Hopefully we do win him round between now and January, depending on how he's playing. If you don't sell him in January, then I hate the phrase down tools, but you can't do that to a guy twice. No matter whether you agree with what you said, or agree with what's happened with the club, and if you're our player, you're our asset, get on with it, deal with it. I think that it's a hard push to really do that to a guy and mess a guy around twice in the same season, particularly if you have given assurances and things like that. And I agree with the evil genius. I do think we're now at the stage that it's got to it where January he's going. He has to go because he's drawn that line in the sand. He's went out there in the open, and this is the bit where this is what doesn't sit well with me. I agree, and I've been coming out and saying that we need a whistleblower. We need somebody to blow the top off of things. I would rather that was guys that had moved on for the club or someone when they leave the club. When they're still in the door, I think that it is detrimental. And as it says there on the tagline, Maeda's basically just thrown more fuel, more petrol onto the flames. They've never really been dying down because of all the fan stuff, and that'll continually hopefully push on. But all he's done is exacerbated the situation a wee bit more. And I'm a great believer that you should never show weakness in the public forum. People might again say, well, what about you guys? What about other podcasts? What about social media? That's showing weakness. That's a fan's gift. That's a fan base gift to be honest and come out there. But I think the people that are in-house, i.e. the manager and the players, once you're past a certain point, you need to start trying to bring things round. I'm all for when the transfer window's open, saying we need quality and calling out and trying to be forceful and make a point. I'm not saying that we won't get the manager coming out and saying a few things, and I don't want him to become a puppet and completely just fold. But it's a balancing act now. Remember back to his first season, and I keep bringing this up, very positive for the off. Then there was that going on the offensive, and it was quite heavy-handed. It was quite like a big club fist, and we need quality. We've not got this and that. And see all the sort of credit in the bank he'd managed to gain with players, including some very average players where we were winning games. It eroded that belief in them. Oh, I'm worthless. What's the point? Manager's no interest. It doesn't think we're good enough. And it did. It eroded away a lot of the sort of goodwill and positivity they had for the team. And you saw that. It started to drop. We started to sort of get into dodgy territory. Fortunately, we spun it round. He got them back on side and we went on, we won the league, and the rest is history, as they say. But it's such a fragile point in the season now where we can't this early on go back into that zone. It's important. We really, really need to try and find a sweet spot where he can sit down with everybody and say, right, listen, this isn't ideal. Sit these players down. I know the club have messed you about, by the way. They've messed me about as well. But in spite of this, we are here to do a job. You're here to do a job for those fans out there that adore you and want you to play. You're here to do a job for me as the manager so that we can be successful. And more importantly, you're here to do a job for yourself, because if your performances drop, your desirability and your chances of getting that move also drop. The standard of move, the standard of team that might come in or come back for you could drop. So it's in your best interest to kick on and find your form. Make the best of your time whilst you're here. Go down or go out with a fight, go out doing what you've been known to be doing. Don't go out a shadow yourself. Don't tarnish your reputation. Don't tarnish your legacy or anything like that. Anyway, putting it, that's what we need to do. We need to buy into these players. But it's just another bit of misery on the pile. Daizen Maeda, he's going to be the key player, isn't he? Yes, Ian Atchell comes in as a striker, but he's not going to be in as number one, is he? You know, the guy looks as if he's fresh off the beach. No, he looks as if he's just at a 4-week all-inclusive, eating and drinking. And I know he's been sort of playing a wee bit of football, but he looks nowhere near match fit. You know, you'd be forgiven if you thought he was just fresh off his holidays, because he does not look like a guy that's peak physical condition. So he's going to take time. And then when you look at it, Maeda by default becomes our through the middle number one striker. And in the past few games when we've put him in those positions, the returns just haven't been there. Why? Is it because of things like we've just said? Is it because he's been promised these moves and he was expecting to go on? And that's where the balancing act then comes in, where I says, what version are we going to get of him? I would like to think, that being the key term, like to think that he will get reinvested, re-engage, and he'll kick on because he'll be thinking further down the line. But then the wee flip side of that is to what extent, you know, that gut-busting run where you're chasing a ball that looks as if it's going to go out, do you put the extra bit of energy and power into your legs to make that at the, you know, threat of maybe pinging your hammy or something, that wee 50-50 ball that's there to be won, do you go in and snatch that? These are wee tiny fine margins. These could be sliding doors moments in a season where, you know, you could be sitting at a nothing each, for example, deep into a game, 80 odd minutes, and the ball's there and the keeper's charging out. And do you go in for it and be fully committed and do what you would normally do and, you know, convert the chance, or do you back out? That's what we've got to ask ourselves. Will we get the Daizen Maeda of old, or a version of it close to it that we really, really need at this moment in time? And we're so short up front. Didn't replace truly Kyogo, didn't truly replace Ida. We need him. And then you look at the other players, Yang, where's his headspace at? He's another guy. He was made promises. It went one further for him because he was actually allowed to go down south and sit and speak with other people. What's this, Paddy? Oh, let me see. I'm apologies. Is there something I need to know about Paddy? I can't. Yeah, there it is. Where's Paddy? I thought I was a negative there when you're saying that, but no, Yang, he's been properly messed about. He was sent down for talks with a club. He thought he was leaving. Bags were packed, ready to go. Nah, I'm on up the road, mate. Where's his head at? You know, Yang was a guy who was low in confidence at the best of times, and maybe we need to get his good lady back over for an extended holiday, because that was the one point where he really kicked on and he looked good. His head's up his backside at the best of times. So what version of him are we going to get? There's two players straight away. Then there's the other ones. Simpson Pusey, I know he's a Man City problem, but he was brought in for a purpose and a point. Not in that Europa League squad. Inamura, brought in, manager, nothing to do with me, no interest in it. Club signing, not in the Europa League squad. And is he really going to be in and about the squad? Is he going to get time? Brendan Rodgers has went like that with Inamura. Osmond probably, I think, as well. To an extent, maybe, despite what he was saying, maybe Pusey, is he a club production? Shin Yamada, there's another one. Nah, not in the Europa League squad. So there's a count in my hand. Yamada, Osmond, Inamura, Simpson Puzzi, Maeda, Yang. That's 6 guys right away. Now, you could argue Inamura and Osman don't know, but it's 4 guys who have brought in that are meant to be in around the first squad who have been getting conflicting messages. There's a lack of belief that they're wanted about or they were expecting to leave. Then, of course, there was the chat of Trusty. He get injured. Maybe he'll have just accepted his fate once he get injured, but potentially there's him as well. Then there's guys like Johnny Kenny, isn't there? All the chat was leading to him get out on loan, then getting some game time, then signing a new contract, then knowing the squad against Rangers, then back in the squad for the Europa League. Chatty selling him. Like, what really do these guys, what is going through these guys' heads? There's so many mixed messages, and it just paints a picture of the sheer dysfunction at the club, on and off it. And aside looking at this season and thinking, how do we pick this up? How do we kick on? Can we get the buy-in? Can we make the investment and make it happen there? And it's strange what I'm saying. Maybe Brendan has the attitude issue. Potentially. Now, I just want to throw this one thing out here. What's your thoughts? Answer away and I'll bring up some of your replies here. What's your thoughts on club signings and manager signings, right? People say you have to give the manager the tools that he wants. You give him, and I understand that. But he's also come back to the club now. We'll never, hopefully we will, when he eventually leaves, right? We might find out the true story. And as I said it before, there's no skin in the game for Rodgers. He's never going to come back to Celtic. There's not going to be a Rodgers part 3, right? It's not happening. Once he leaves Celtic, it's done. So does it really matter if he burns bridges with Wall and Desmond and stuff like that? If he goes out the door, successful or otherwise, I think that he'll have repaired a lot of the damage. Not all of it, of course, and not everybody will be in on it. And there'll be people who still never forgive him, right? But he'll if he stays it out, and he's particularly if he leaves successfully, we'll say, okay, he came back, stayed these words 3 years. He did get messed around a bit, but also he should have done his bit with the tactics and things like that. And football dropped off. There'll always be that. But he can walk away with his head high. And if he comes out and then basically whistle blows it all up, what's he going to miss out on? Coming back to appear in the studio on Celtic TV a couple of times, walking out onto the park, maybe to unfurl a flag further down the line, a free ticket at this, who cares? So it would be good if he left after it and blew the top off it. But what do you think? Do you think that he's came back and who knows what he's been told, but he kind of knows the way the structure works, that if the club go and sign a player and they're offering a certain standard, they might not be superstars, and I genuinely believe, I don't think that Osman, Yamada, the likes of that they are superstars, right? There's potential there, that's the key word. But should he be playing them, or at least have them in the squad? Should beggars be choosers at this point? Because that's what we are. Because his options are completely limited. And he might say, I don't think Inamura's up to it, I don't think Yamada's up to it. But then you look at it and go, well, what's the alternative options, mate? Would you not rather have Yamada, who is a striker, on the bench as an option, rather than not having somebody that's a striker and maybe having to, I don't know, play Benjamin Nikren as a false nine or some garbage like that? Do you think the manager at this stage really should be working with all the tools that he's got? Or do you think that what he's doing and basically drawing a line under it and saying, they're nothing to do with me, so I have no obligation to play them? Do you think that is the right approach? Let me know and we'll get some of these up. And there's a few other things. You know, Kevin's saying that his main worry is, who's this so-called board going to report next? Or appoint, sorry. 100%, Kev. I was having this chat with my old man today, and I says to him, my biggest concern here is that when he does go, because he is going next season, it's a fact, right? And then the top off, more than likely, off the top of my head, Hatate will be away. Maeda will definitely be away. Probably you'd maybe say Carter Vickers is coming to the end of his tenure there as well. Maybe probably wouldn't be surprised if a guy like Alistair Johnson went. Trusty, That's just 5 at the moment. You could start to wheel through this, and I reckon you could get departures. Casper Schmeichel's going to be going over, get Sinisalo, but then you need to get somebody else in. I reckon Celtic could be looking at a wholesale clear out, 8, 9 players, maybe more, during the summer. Now, we can't trust this board to future plan through the summer, succession planning to get in a couple of signings. Because let's face it, that's what it was. It was a couple of signings. Yeah, we'll always be not greedy, but realistic and say Celtic need 5, 6 guys in the door off quality. But they could have got away with it by getting in one bona fide, tip-top quality striker, a developmental to sort of second grade striker. Again, I'll throw it out there. I'm not saying he's solution. I'm just using it. You could have went and got your Dolsberg or whoever. I know he was garbage tonight, but just use him as an example. You could have went and got your 9 million guy, your Strelec, for example, your 9 million guy, and then a backup guy, a Miovski, £2.6 million, right? That would have ticked the boxes and covered you. So we could have at least got away with 2 strikers, a right back option, and 8 other wingers. So there you go. You could have got 4 players in, and it would have patched up the squad relatively well. They couldn't even do that. So what chance have we got that when that manager goes and when the clean out happens, that from day one, boom, new manager in the door, hitting the ground running, getting the players out and getting the players in for European qualification, up to 3 rounds of European qualification. It's absolutely laughable, isn't it? I mean, I'm not laughing for dramatic effect. When I actually sat and thought about that today, it was one of those sort of like manic insanity laughs where you're like, bloody hell, what is the chances? I mean, look at what happened, for example, with the Eddie Howe and the Ange thing. Can you imagine that repeating itself? Because Celtic wouldn't fall on their feet with the likes of an Ange in that situation. That was just sheer pot luck, absolute luck upon luck that Celtic were able to get him in the door. More importantly, a guy who knew that he was a second choice and took it. And it just so happened that because of the lateness that we got him in, the qualifiers did come a wee bit too soon because we hadn't had him in the door early enough. We had waited so late, and it meant ideas weren't bedded in, players weren't bedded in, and it was detrimental to the development. We then had that sort of rough patch, of course, where the start of the season was bad, and then it kicked on and you saw, here's what you could have won. That'll happen again. But I don't think the outcome may be successful this time round. And that's why we need a root and branch like change at the club here sooner rather than later. Wee Mitch is saying that they hope that they sort of fear the 90s return. I don't think it's that. Listen, it's no that bad, right? It's drastic. It's embarrassing. I don't think we're in danger of it going back to the madness that was scrambling about in the 90s. But yeah, I will get 8 players in January. We'll future-proof in January, won't we? We can wish madness. That's chances of that happening. But coming back to the whole idea about us going back into something of a Celtic recession, I don't think it'll get that bad. But what I will say is, and this is where, again, and I know you hate me talking about them, but this is a critical point. This is a breaking point for Celtic. Being successful, and this is for everybody at the club, this is first and foremost between now and January. This is down to the management team, the manager, getting the players invested and getting firing. It's important that we get through this winning by no matter what means. Staying ahead, even if it's just by a point, but staying ahead, seeing it through, navigating the choppy waters until January. And hopefully all this stuff that the likes of here and all the other fan, content out there and the CSCs and the affiliation, everybody that are putting the pressure on, hopefully that goes answered to a certain extent. Ideally with what we want, which is change on the board level. But if minimum it is a January of trying to scrape together some level of redemption. They're never going to redeem themselves. But I mean, figuratively, where they think, well, if we give them the players in January, then no, we're going to be criticised. See if that at least forces that, where we do come out of January with some players that we need to help us kick on and finish the season, then that's better than nothing for the meantime, for the short term. But yeah, the worry I've got is that if Celtic fail to be successful this season, Rangers are in a different spot. Now, we have had great success domestically since they've been out of the business. But when we really peel it back and we do a wee bit of sort of soul searching and search your thoughts and be honest with yourself, we have been successful against a backdrop of terrible competition, not just for Rangers, but everybody in the league. There was a couple of pretenders, the Aberdeen things and that, but never sustained. And we have had something of an easy ride. Now, I know that trebles upon trebles are hard to win. We've seen that. There's no guarantees. It's still an achievement, a big achievement. You've still got to win those games. But I mean, from the nip and tuck things, the league perspective, the run of the league, it's been a joke. And the one time that we gave way, unfortunately, there's a lot of mirroring for this season, for the dreaded 10 season, for the dreaded COVID season, where we've got, as I've just named all those players, we've got a bunch of players who were expecting to move, who were given assurances or whatever that they could move. Now, neither us or them could have foreseen the fact that COVID would have shut down transfers in world football as well. It wasn't exclusive to Celtic. There was a lot of players who were still essentially captive to their teams because nobody was buying players. And yeah, the whole COVID thing and the environment where you couldn't socialise, that's something unprecedented. That's totally different. Like, that's different gravy. But the fundamentals of you having guys that wanted to be away, folk wanting to be away and couldn't be away, that mindset, that's similar to now. And we do have that. We've also got a manager that seems a wee bit sort of at odds with those upstairs. It seems a wee bit sort of disenfranchised. So there is a lot of echoing. Now, Rangers are in a different spot now. Yeah, they're not performing. They're not enamoured with their manager. But there's no doubt that, see, behind the scenes with this new consortium that are in charge of them, they do have better people in charge. They've got people who are proper businessmen with business acumen, with sports background acumen, that want to build, that want to grow, that see the importance of the business side and stabilising, but also the requirement to put it on the pitch. And again, whether you think what they're buying is good, bad, indifferent, garbage or whatever, they're still doing it. And Celtic won't be as fortunate as we have been over the years, where they are a basket case on and off the field. Rangers will get to a stage where the likes of what they've done there and spending £29 million in a summer window, pretty much every penny they brought in from players, they sold them, or spent it, on top. And they might just be able to start looking at something that resembles player trading. But as Ange Postecoglou once said, that's fine, but Celtic have been doing that. But what we don't do is we don't do it aggressively. The word that he used was aggressive player trading. It's about realising when somebody's time's up, selling them at the maximum, being definitive and decisive about it. Bang, you are going, you're coming in. That's the thing that we need to fix. And I think coming back to Rangers, that's something that they will look to work on. We've been not dependent, but we have been off the hook a lot of times with the fact that Rangers have been absolutely garbage on the field, but a mess off the park. They've not had the money to spend. They've not had the foresight. They've not had the stability at their club, but now they do have that. And if they were to win the league, hopefully not, touch wood, fingers crossed, all that, if they were to, I can guarantee you, they will go from strength to strength. And that's the biggest thing that we need to worry about. That is the biggest threat. The biggest threat to Celtic is at the front end as themselves. Celtic will always be the biggest threat to Celtic's success. But there is a new contender. And it's what we used to have years ago. Yes, it was financial dope and all that. We know that. But there was a genuine on-the-field contender and threat to Celtic. And all it'll take is, in my opinion, for something to click there. If they get rid of the basket case that they've got in charge and bring in somebody with halfway, decent management ability, then we could be in trouble with them. And a lot of people are saying, what about Hearts? Well, yeah, remains to be seen. Hearts are. I watched that wee interview with Tony Bloom. Not when he looked at a wee creepy puppet. He's like, I'm going to win the league in 5 years. And I was like, look at this guy, man, he's mental. But, we laughed at Tony Bloom. But when we look at what he's done with Brighton, all right, they're never going to be Premier League champions, or they might maybe get a FA Cup or something. But what he's done is he's made them a sustainable and thriving club that are punching well above their weight. And it'd be interesting to see how much money needs to go into Hearts to make them happen. Now, do I think that will they be a sustained challenge? No, I don't. I think that if they're going to be assisted, I think they're on the right track. They're trying to modernise. They're trying to find the best in class from what they can get with the resources and the money that they've got to make them better. But will they be a sustained challenge? That remains to be seen. But I think if they bring in a different manager, I think they've got in McInnes as a placeholder manager. He's a guy that knows Scottish football, and he consolidates teams and makes them hard to beat and all that kind of stuff. He's there to allow the sort of foundations to get laid at the Tony Bloom era. And then there'll come a point where through their analytics or whatever it is they use, they'll go out and they will get like a Knutson or somebody of that ilk that you've maybe not heard of, and they'll bring him in. But the difference is they'll give him the resources to do his job. And that's what the difference will come in. When you look at some of the signings that they've been making, they're no expensive signings, but they've definitely improved their side. Even when you look at teams like Hibs bringing in some players, again, not a brilliant manager, but they're doing the right things to try and get better, and they are also getting better. Then you look at Aberdeen, bit of a basket case, but you go and you look at the signing that they got at the boy for Bologna. That's pushing, that's trying to improve, that's trying to do things different. And that's what Celtic don't have, unfortunately. There's no fresh thinking. And I actually think that see somebody like a Tony Bloom, he would terrify the Celtic board. See somebody like that coming and saying, I want to buy some shares and you want to have an investment in you guys. I think that they'd be like, look at you with your mad blue sky thinking, you mental. Can't be having that, son. And that's where we fail. That's where we fall down. And I saw people talking about directors of football, and I was watching a wee bit of Phil and the boys in the bus. I'm sure a lot of you guys were in that chat as well there. And they were talking about a director of football, and they were talking about, like, no, look at Bistraken or a Kennedy or a Maloney or whoever. That's something that we definitely need to get in. That'll be the first bit of change, right? Now, ultimately, the CEO is, I keep saying it, fed up of saying it, needs to go, needs to be sacked. Root and branch, get all out there, so on and so forth. That needs to happen. Is Dermot Desmond going anywhere? No, he's no, because it's a plaything. And what I would say is the only way I think Dermot Desmond goes, and I would never, ever, don't take this the wrong way, I would never, ever wish ill harm or death on anybody. But see, he's an old guy, he's getting on his years. See, when he's not here and everything he's got passes on to his family, that's the only way I think that he leaves. Now, I'm pretty sure that somebody would turn around and say things like, he'll be, he's a Celtic man, and he'll probably have written in his will, my shares will never be sold, and that might be the case, right? But have you ever seen Dermot's boy in and around Celtic? Have you ever seen him at Celtic Park? Have you ever heard anything that he's interested in Celtic, the business of Celtic, the business of football? I haven't. Thank you very much, mate. Thank you. Kind words. I've not. So he's, from where I'm sitting, has no skin in the game. And I think that he would probably sell to the highest bidder. I might be wrong on that one. But once Dermot Desmond is no longer off this earth, then that's genuinely the only way I think that he will move on. And that's sad. That's sad to think, because we are just a wee plaything for them. I really think that we are a plaything. It's something that looks good when you are, you know, swanning about these fancy dinners, and you're at these big sort of executive parties, or you're out in the golf course with Rory McIlroy, and it's all, what do you do? Well, I'm a billionaire and I own this business and that. No, by the way, I've got the largest shareholding in Celtic Football Club. I take a lot to do with that. That's what it is. And when we trace back since 1995, whenever he first put in that initial front end investment, the truth is that you, I, and fans all over the world, we have and people say, come on, Steve, we're talking shite. We have probably put in, since 1995, I don't mean he's got like millions upon millions of investment. I mean after that investment. I mean on top of that investment, year to year, you and I probably put more money into Celtic Football Club than Dermot Desmond does. And what I mean is yeah, he's put in millions beyond our imagination that we'll never have. But on the season-to-season basis, when you go and pay your 650, whatever it is, 500, 600, 700, depending on where you are seated, season ticket, you buy all these tops, for your kids or whoever, the Christmas presents, you buy your Europa League packages, your Champions League packages, you go to the extra games, you go to the everything, you buy the the merchandise or whatever it is. Fans are into the club for thousands upon thousands, often money that they don't have every single year. Whereas Dermot Desmond's front loaded it all because he's got the money anyway, but he hasn't actually went and put any fresh money into the club. Neither's Nicholson, neither's Peter Hall. None of them have put in money. And as San Fran's saying, yes, probably tenfold. His money is more than paid for. He's now just getting dividends every single year. He's taken out, and you could say, well, rightfully so, that's what happens when you invest. You're entitled to get your growth out of it. But he takes money out, yes, because he's invested it, but there's nothing else. There's no fresh cash injection. And we always laughed when Rangers were doing the fresh cash injection and the share issues and all that. When's the last time Celtic had done that? When's the last time Celtic went and said, we've brought in Steve O'Matt, for example. He's a businessman from Scotland, and he's putting in £6 million investment into the club. When is the last time we've had an external character come in of any worth and put cash injection, fresh investment into the club that hasn't been sponsorships, that hasn't been merchandising deals? It just simply hasn't happened. These guys have just taken their dividends, taken their wages, and we haven't had any investment. You and I, as I say, each season have put in thousands into the club. They haven't. And that's the reality. So coming full circle on it, when Desmond is no longer around, will his son want to carry that ball and get involved? Who knows? That's why I think that guys like him, guys like Chris Traynor, guys like Keane, they need to be getting approached and asked by people with not only business acumen, but a genuine interest and investment in Celtic as fans. Need to be getting asked the question, can we buy parts of your shares? Paying it the going rate above, they'll be making their money. Can we get in there? Can we get together smaller shareholdings, combine all together, maybe get one of these guys on board, because then you've got a figurehead, and try and force change? Because until these guys, as I say, are unfortunately no longer here, I don't think you're going to force them out the door. You might be able to get rid of Desmond, because he's just, not Desmond, sorry, Wall, because he's just Peter Wall. We've seen him disappear for a wee bit. You could potentially get rid of him, and he's getting older as well, and you've got to ask yourself, can he be bothered with it anymore? His son gets sacked. How did he genuinely feel about that? Maybe he's not too great on that one. So you can get rid of him. You can get rid of Nicholson. You can get rid of the non-executive board members that have been there for 9 years that are supposed to be coming in and being objective. There is ones that you can move on, but Dermot Desmond's at the top of the tree, and he's the only guy, as I say, until he's no longer around. That's the only time I think that question's ever going to get asked. And that's the reality of us. We need to try and change things around it. We need to try and influence change and get ourselves in the door there. Coming back to the stuff about the fan groups, the groundswell of support, the pressure has been getting turned up notch by notch by notch every single day, and it's great to see that there's a lot more coming out. Of course, we've then had this statement here, which is from the representatives of the Irish supporters groups as well. Considering the recent atrocious transfer window and lack of any apparent strategy at any level with regards to the signing of quality players to develop our squad, we want to make sure and express members' concern to the club without delay. Failure to qualify for Champions League is unacceptable at all levels. As I said, I repeat it again, if you were a CEO of any other company and your decisions or part decisions cost your company around about £30 million, you'd be in the bin. So absolutely right. We feel that the fan groups deserve a level of accountability from within the club, with a committee representing constantly on the ground in Glasgow, and can only confirm that our views are directly aligned with that of other sports associations. We continue to express our members' utter disbelief and indeed disappointment at the position we as a club now find ourselves in for the season ahead. Not only the current season, but many future seasons will be heavily affected by this week's events. And this is true. Now, it was said on other platforms that the general rule of thumb is considered that for every one failed transfer window in a season, it takes you between 4 to 5 to catch up, such as the domino knock-on effect. That will come to roost come January, and that will come to roost at the end of this season, this time next year, this end of summer transfer window next season, when I say you could have up to 8 players wanting out. That will have a massive knock-on effect, and that will have a massive knock-on financial effect as well. Bearing in mind that Celtic are always apprehensive to sign until they know where they stand in Europe. It will not be possible come this time next year. Celtic will have to get the players in either in January, straddled between January, with a view getting into summer, and then picking up the rest in the summer, or all in January or all in the summer, which is not going to happen, because they need the bodies in. They need to be prepared. They need to have a succession plan. Rodgers is gone. These players are gone between January and the summer. Moves should be made to try and secure the next manager and identify players. Can they do it? I don't believe they can, but let's bloody hope. Continuing, sorry. We, as an association representing our members, will do everything we can to get answers to express our complete lack of faith in the current strategies in place at the club. From this week's recent events to ongoing issues regarding the overall matchday experience for supporters, we will demand a response on the issues and release a more detailed statement after we have met with the committee. So it's good to see again that there's more people coming out, and the Irish fans, as we well know, they come over. Fans travel from all over the place. There's people that come over for all walks of life, all backgrounds, all countries, every single weekend that Celtic play. But there's no doubt that there's always that pilgrimage heavily from Ireland, and also for down south and other parts of the UK, and their voice will be definitely important, and it's good to see them getting added to the list of people backing the same message. As I said, the walls are starting to close in. The fan pressure is growing, and they can't hide. They're hide and seek champions. They're sponsor silence champions. It can't keep on happening. When's the tipping point going to be? When is the tipping point going to be? And what is the version? What is the, again, stop it. You are going crazy, but thank you very much. Really, really, I do appreciate that. Mental. I honestly, I can't get my head around it. Use people want to donate to the channel, but thank you very much. We really do appreciate it. But yeah, coming back in, what do you think? Tell me right now before we close up. What is the timescale, if any, and what do you think the correspondence, if any, is going to be for the Celtic board? Is it going to be a softball interview done on house? Are we going to get somebody going as far to get on to Sky Sports? But what I would say about that is it's probably the wrong platform, because if you ever watch a Sky Sports interview, whether it's got fan media on or whether it's got people for the club, it's easy to spin the agenda you want, isn't it? And you know how that one would go. Fans are unhappy, you didn't get into Champions League, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure yous are very disappointed, though, as the board, about not getting it. It's a layup, isn't it? Oh, yeah, we're absolutely got it. Oh, we can't believe that happened. And then, are you surprised that after all the success that you've got, that the fans are unhappy? Well, yes, I mean, you look at our track record, it's no the way to do it. And as we Mitch is saying, surely guys like ourselves doing a podcast have a voice to get together. We're always for singing for the same hymn sheet. We're always for a joint up way of talking. And a lot is the main podcast. Pretty much everyone I know of is on that list and endorses the open letter that was put out there. In terms of what can we do, well, we can just continue to do what we're doing here, and I wouldn't say push a narrative, because it's not a narrative, it's fact. Tell the truth, tell the harsh, cold reality, the truths, and come out there, ask the questions, be forceful in the way that we talk, rather than hiding behind it. And I think you start to realise that despite what some people will say on X or in the comments, or maybe even other podcasts will say that such and such are cozied in with him and they're cozied in. Well, clearly not, because look at the amount of fan media and podcasts and bloggers and everything that are on there that are all backing something that is saying this board is not fit for purpose. If you were really cozied up with them, you wouldn't put your name on it. You would skirt around the situation, wouldn't you? So I think it's pretty clear that we're all aligned on that one. What can we do? As I say, is just continue to do this, continue to spread the word, continue to encourage people to make their voices heard, and do whatever that takes. Signing up to these things, if there's any, if there's any sort of like joint up thinking in terms of sensible levels of protesting, whether that's boycotting certain things, whether that's as we said before, the turning your back on the game, whether that's the banners or whatever it is, it's going to be a slower. It's not going to be like the old way where getting the board out was very, very possible, because there was a financial aspect attached to it, and that was what put them in jeopardy, because they couldn't keep the business of the club running. So that was the danger of them. That worked differently. We find ourselves in a different territory here. So it's really just about having a continued joint up message, and we say it's about making your voice heard, but doing it in the best way. Because one thing that we certainly don't want to do, and we don't want to see, certainly ourselves, we don't want to see anybody do, is doing things in the wrong way. The old shark throwing, the sort of unlawful stuff that's going to reflect poorly on the fan base, is going to reflect poorly on the club, even though they're in a state as it is now. But do things the right way. Do things the right way, because that just gives them upstairs more ammunition. If you do things in a cowboy manner, and it's wild and it's outlandish and it's unlawful, and it's starting to blur into those sort of unsavoury ways, that just solidifies their contempt for you. Look at them. And they've got a cheek to call us out. Look at the state of that, because that's what you're dealing with here. All these people understand is calculated, cold, and sort of almost business-like approach to it. So let's approach it that way. Let's be organised. Let's arm ourselves with the ammunition that we need. And Paul John Dykes on Axon made a brilliant point today. And I don't know if you saw it, but I'll just repeat it. I'll just sort of paraphrase. I don't have all the great info that he's got on it. But he was talking about UEFA rules around about kind of dual ownership. Now, we know that Mr. Mustachio he's basically the equivalent of what he is at Celtic with Shamrock Rovers, but his shareholding's so high, he's got like a controlling stake. Now, he's not the owner of Celtic, but he does have, and we've seen from ex-players, from ex-managers, so on and so forth, that he is involved in the day-to-day running. Now, I don't know the article. Go and check out Axon from today. They read out the paragraph, they explain it all. But in short, you can't have a conflict of interest. You basically can't have like dual ownership. Now, I know that he doesn't own Celtic, but his actions at Celtic, where we hear about managers being approached, called, teed up, interviewed, and yesed by him. Yeah, so maybe a wee loophole, but he's making footballing decisions. He is making direct football decisions. Managers coming out and saying, such and such was signed, and I was told, yeah, he was told by Dermot Desmond, get him signed. He was the guy that signed him. He arranged that, and I walked in, that was my player. We know that. That's fact. That's not rumour and innuendo. That's fact. He's been making decisions at an executive level, like someone who's running a club at Celtic, and he's been doing it at Shamrock as well. So you then get into a conflict of interest where that can really get you in trouble. Now, I don't know if it's you have to be playing in the same competition, but bearing in mind the way the coefficient's going, bearing in mind the way that there's going to be more qualifiers, it's not out of the realms of possibility that Celtic could find themselves playing in the same tournament as Shamrock Rovers anytime soon. It's very, very possible, and or playing against them. And if he's making business decisions at both of them, then that is a conflict of interest, and that's something that could get you in some soapy bubble with the authorities, and that's the last thing that we want. So that's maybe something, that's maybe an avenue to begin round to investigate and dig into deeper to see, is there a conflict of interest here? Is he, he's a de facto owner, de facto head of the business that's making business decisions when he shouldn't be doing it, and that's it. That's what we need to be looking at. That's definitely an avenue that we need to be down there and investigating, because that's maybe the realistic way to getting him to relinquish some of the power if it starts to threaten us at a UEFA competition level. And there you go, as he says, find a wee loophole. I think maybe he has been finding a wee loophole in the way he's been dealing with things there. And that's the thing as well. So Brown's saying, people, not only financial clout, but also business acumen, skills to the necessary legal side. If we are going to be changing over, there's a lot of things. And, Seymour Pye saying, sick of politics, football first. Seymour, I really don't want to be sitting here and talking about the ins and outs of football and politics, but unfortunately our board has made this a football and politics background, because that's what we find ourselves in. We're having to sit and talk about business and accounts and finances and dividends and shares and stocks and things like that, because that's what this board's turned into. They have concentrated so much on the political side, the in politics, looking after protecting their own wee bubble, looking out for themselves, at the neglect of the footballing side. If they found that balance and were doing their job as people running a football club, then we'd be talking about all the good football stuff. But unfortunately, their decision making, their way of working, which is business, which is political, internal politics, is affecting us. And that's why we're talking about it. I'd rather not be, believe me, I'd rather have been talking about a fantastic transfer window and looking forward to the football coming back. But all we've got is we've got people sitting here, and it's like, where do we go for here? We've got players coming out again, telling us how bad things are. So here you go. Here's something Brown's asking to all those that are watching now. Would you sink £100 of your money into a share, to share drive and get control with a 50+1? I'm pretty sure most people would. Well, what does £100 get you? If you're an adult, you're lucky if it gets you a top and a water bottle out the superstore. I think if that's something that could be getting done, then absolutely. And people are saying, yeah, 100%. I think that's what it all comes down to. I think that's what we've got to look at. We've got to look at getting some way of joining up fans, trying to get, and I don't know, there is places that you can buy and trade Celtic stock and shares. How much is out there? I really don't know. I will look into it further for what it's worth, but it would be good to get somebody together. We essentially need another Fergus McCann type figure, another Brian Dempsey. We need somebody, we need guys who have got the financial backing to begin with, but they've also got the desire and the best interest of the football club at heart. And bringing those people again for run it back, if you will, to try and be the spearhead, be the figurehead of these fan groups to pull it back. Because we heard about the Celtic Trust thing, their AGM. There was a couple of people for good business backgrounds that were going there, I believe, with a view of seeing if they could work with the trust to try and get more shares. And again, wasn't there, but from what I've heard, the general consensus was they walked in and went, can't work with these people, it's not going to work. But I don't think that, led to believe, that didn't deter them. So whoever those guys are that are out there, they might be looking at these inroads and trying to find people to bring it together to launch a second sort of fan-driven way to get ourselves into the door and get a voice on the board. And I think that ultimately is going to be our best shot. Ideally, the whole 50+1 thing it's phenomenal. We see a lot of that in Germany. That's great. But that means significant change in a really, really hard set in their ways. And that, again, as I say, could potentially come around if you could get guys like Trainer, Keane to sell up or come part of a sort of a trust where, yes, they've got a large piece of that pie that's still their investment, but they are clubbed together and they acknowledge that within that, this is my bit of it. That might be something. But ultimately, it's all going to be down to what happens over time with Dermot Desmond, because he does have that biggest chunk at this moment in time. And yeah, we can get close to it. We can get close, I believe, about 5%. I'll give you voice and potential to get on the board. But you really need, you want to start to get into that sort of 15-20%. That's really, really where you want to be. And I think that's more realistically where a fan-derived thing's going to end up. I think the 50+1, as great as it sounds, I don't see it happening. I certainly don't see it happening anytime soon, but I would love for it to become a reality. So anyway, I think I might have just rambled and ranted on a wee bit, maybe longer than I would have intended to, but thanks to every single one that's taken in, and nearly 12 o'clock and people are still talking. I'm going to throw something out here, and it is what it is, but tomorrow, as you well know, there is, of course, this, and it's the Legends match for the Celtic FC Foundation. Now, I know there's a lot of people who don't like, for whatever reason, the foundation or Tony Hamilton or whatever. You know, we had Tony Hamilton sitting there and was speaking there. But I think that it's came out that all the proceeds for this match will go to the foundation, right? And as I put out in a post last night, the foundation is probably at this moment in time the only genuinely positive, good thing that has the Celtic name attached to it directly at our club. We saw the video from the Paradise pit stop with Simon Donnelly. And if you don't know about that, it's an initiative where they open the doors to Celtic Park and the lounges. People can come in, they can have a hot meal, they can have a drink, they can socialise, and it's a safe space. Now, within our communities, in and around Glasgow and beyond, there's a lot of people who do not have two bob to rub together. And the foundation pit stop and a lot of the work that they do is, you know, massive. It makes a huge, huge difference to these people. So I've sat here and I've championed over and over and over, boycott, if you can, home ticket cup scheme in the bin, Europa League package in the bin. Go into the stadium on a match day, don't buy anything. Do not buy anything. Don't buy your pies, don't buy your burgers, whatever it is, your drinks. Paradise Windfall in the bin. Nothing. Don't do it. And I will still say that. But I will make an exception for a charity event where all the money is going to the foundation to allow them to keep on providing for people who are not just Celtic fans. There'll be people who aren't Celtic fans that just know about it and they go in to provide for people who don't have what you and I are fortunate enough to have. And it is a lifeline to these people. So I would say go to this match if you can. There's some good players there. It should be always a good sort of nature, good laugh, good family day. And we've been told that all the money is going to that. Now, does the money in the kiosks go to them, the food and all that? I don't know. I'd probably not. But the ticket money goes direct. The programme money will go direct. So that's the one thing that I would draw a line and say that is a worth cause. And then once that's done after it, we're back on board. No Europa League. Stick up your arse in the bin. There you go. But that's just my wee sort of bit there that I just wanted to say. And San Francisco, yep, it is. It's it definitely is. The foundation. I saw when we done that video, and I was quite surprised. There's a few folk that for whatever reason didn't like the foundation. I don't know how you can't like charity. It's one of the very few genuine things that this club really do that is close to our roots, that is, echoing the purpose that Celtic were, founded and brought for, to provide for those less fortunate. And that's exactly what the foundation do. And tomorrow at Celtic Park, 2 o'clock, the Legends match, all the money for the gate is going into it so they can continue to help those people. So if we could, for one day, just shelve that thought of a boycott, because that's not for the board, that's for people that are out there that are less fortunate. So that's my wee sort of soapbox moment on that. But listen, we'll get out of all your hair. Thank you very much for, and there he goes, Pam says, the foundation and the board are separate. Yes, and they could not be any further apart. That is the reality of it. One thing is giving and generous and genuine, and the other are all from themselves. So anyway, take care of yourselves. If any great, brilliant new news comes out there that's going to put a smile on our face, you know that we'll be here and we'll be back. But until next time, take care of yourselves. Thanks for the support. Thanks for the generous donations. Hit subscribe. Help us push for the 3K. And until next time, we will see you round the bend. Take care of yourselves and hail, hail.